What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Frogs and Friends Roundtable. This is a news-packed week, all kinds of shit going on. First and foremost, we got the Frogs here with us. We got Ryan, we got Krash, we got Adam, we got Meta. What's going on, my guys?
What's up, man?
Afternoon, fellas.
Hello.
Don't be so down today, guys. Come on. But let's just jump into it. First, let's just jump into the big thing the past couple days since pretty much last Thursday, last Friday, and this stock market rotation, Bitcoin rotation going back down to previous lows of 60,000. And we got the SpaceX, Tesla, or Elon Musk's SpaceX doing an IPO for this upcoming Friday. Does anyone have any thoughts here with SpaceX IPO and what it's looking like with the market?
I don't know. Is it a play? Is it a play to move capital into that so it comes out of Bitcoin? Is it or just to downplay Bitcoin for a little longer? Are we stalling till July 4th for an announcement of some kind? I don't know. Your guys' thoughts.
Wow, Ryan, that's such a good point, though. I mean, this is just stealing the luster, stealing all the fiat that's sitting in the system that could be going to Bitcoin right now. That's a really good point, man. Did you guys see Elizabeth Warren's trying to stop the IPO?
No.
For SpaceX?
Yeah, like why? I don't get it, but yeah, the hype is insane.
Pocahontas.
We're seeing like what 3x levered ETFs popping out
Yes.
all over the place to take the alpha from the first day. Yeah, I don't know. This seems pretty dangerous.
It does. Because obviously we're going to be seeing probably three IPOs this summer, OpenAI and Anthropic.
And Google
And Google is
issuing a
another one.
pref,
Yeah,
Yeah.
taking a page from Michael Saylor.
80 billion.
40.
Mhm.
Was it
Is
80 or
it 40?
40?
I thought it was 80.
Oh shit. Wow.
Well,
That's even crazier.
all right, let me just jump into I want to go a little bit here and say with these IPOs and obviously what we've seen with the market this last week, people are rotating, taking money off the table to be able to jump into SpaceX and all these IPOs that we're going to see this summer. Does that kind of, because obviously Trump administration does want to move, is building out AI. That's not the issue here. That AI is the future, but does that is that going to involve a big print? Because like you guys have just said, where's this money going to be coming from? Like you can only pull out so much of your capital or whatever you have in reserves or whatever. And we've seen so much here, just even from the first one here, SpaceX. And does that kind of go hand in hand? And obviously, interest rates were released today, and it's over 4%. So like, where is this money going to be coming from after a lot of these reserves and rotations are exhausted?
I was thinking the same thing you're thinking there, Crash. I mean, like this really well, so Trump's meeting with the top 12 AI CEOs. He wants the American people to get a piece of the action. He's thinking, well, I think in his statement, he was saying that the AI companies want to give the American public a piece of the action. So some kind of share, whatever that may be. I personally think that goes into the sovereign wealth fund Trump talked about in the beginning of his administration. But yeah, where's the rest of the money going to come from? And I guess what like the useful exercise would be to figure out how much money is actually traded with all U.S. stock markets. What's the actual assets under management of the S&P, Nasdaq, Russell? What is it? I mean, and then I guess figure out what the rotation percentage would be to even cover these IPOs, because we're talking about. I don't think SpaceX is raising specifically $2 trillion, but it's coming out at a $2 trillion valuation at IPO, and I think they're trying to raise 75 billion,
Mm-hmm. Well,
which
yeah,
is
because they're like three. I guess they could issue three times more shares by what the demand is for this IPO this week.
Yeah. So how is that? Like, do they split it? I saw some talk about they may just do a split right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
I mean, yeah, I mean, we haven't necessarily seen something like this, like that. 3 times people are ready. It might even be 4 times people that
it's 4x right now,
is
where
a
it
4x.
sits right
Okay,
now. Yeah. So
that
they
is
moved the
crazy.
deadline. I think was supposed to be yesterday, and they moved the deadline to today to secure shares.
Okay, see, I thought Friday was the final day, so it it was yesterday
That's when it
originally.
goes
It
live.
was originally yesterday. Okay, all right, I gotcha. Interesting. I don't know, man. I think I'm a fan, but I don't want to touch this right now. Um, Obviously, like Tesla, when that IPO'd, same thing. Meta, Facebook had its issues, but that had some like legal issues as well at opening. But a lot of these IPOs, man, like they hit some rocky spots early on. A lot of rug pulls, and not saying that SpaceX is not going to be amazing or life changing, world changing, but I don't know. I
But
mean,
it's like it's kind of like the whole stablecoin thing. Like it's just distributing the debt because I mean, SpaceX is in an astronomical amount of debt.
mhm.
I know Elon said that it's paying for itself with Starlink and things like that, but I mean, you're just talking. I don't know. It's definitely your exit liquidity for the insiders. I don't know. It's a tough one, man, because I know the administration wants everybody into, they want them to be number one financially literate. They want everyone to take a piece of the market so they actually have some skin in the game.
Mhm.
So, I mean, having this come out and just like wreck everybody doesn't seem like that's going to help the cause. So, this is a really tough one. This is a tough one.
Yeah. And like we have said before, whenever everyone's sidetracked and invested in something else or wherever money is locked up, that's usually when Bitcoin wants to make its moves. And I could see that. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to call for it by any means, but I can certainly see that as something that could play out. And we have certainly seen something like that before. Meta, you want to jump in here and kind of tell us what like a little bit of your take or what you're feeling about this previous week?
Yeah, well, I understand Adam's apprehension. It's so hard to say. I could sit here and hypothesize about all these different scenarios. It does seem like, look, I could see it pumping and not ever stop. I could see it just going up forever. I think that's probably less likely. I think when you start laying in the theorizing about, I just like the fact that Bitcoin right now, when I think of what's going on with the Bitcoin price action, I'm reminded of what happens before a tsunami, and the water gets drawn out, right, and then it kind of turns into this giant swell and this enormous wave. Waves start crashing, and I kind of feel like I don't know. The timing of that seems very odd to me. The fact that so many people are just so bearish on Bitcoin. I don't think it's ever been worse. The sentiment, and that doesn't even make sense to me because I'm not saying it hasn't sucked. Watching it, lose as much fiat, value as it has over the last few months. But this isn't shit, man. I mean, like we're still well above where we were in previous cycles, and but that raises interesting questions about just how much money is sloshing around in the system. Like, are we getting real measurements here as far as like where's the money going to come from for these IPOs? It raises a lot of interesting questions about that. There's just too many unknowns. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's a way to know some of these things to maybe kind of, but I still think there's so much speculation, there's so much chaos. It's hard for me to even theorize about it because I'm just like whenever this kind of stuff happens, my own personal approach is just do nothing. Just don't do anything. Don't make a move. The best move is no move. And I think Bitcoin needs, I think Bitcoin is the trade on the heels of this trade. I think it's the next big trade in terms of like what the actual capital markets and Wall Street and everybody is going to be looking at because
Although all of this sounds amazing, This is not financial advice.
The timing couldn't be better. And somebody said earlier, like there is this potential for lockup, right? So there could be a bit of a trap to some degree that the rotation back into Bitcoin happens suddenly, as Sam Samao puts it. So that's about as much as I've got. I kind of am intentionally not speculating on it because I'm literally clueless as to what is actually going on with this one.
So Meta, I looked up what is the total AUM of the United States entire financial markets. So it exceeds 100 trillion, encompassing over 47 trillion in US equities and nearly 50 trillion in US fixed income.
The fixed income market, a lot of that value there is it's not really liquid. It's kind of stuck to a certain degree. So it would be interesting to know. And then also, did I mishear this? I thought the S&P wasn't going to include
No, you're
SpaceX,
correct. You're
but
correct.
Nasdaq, and I think the Russell is as well, right?
They said they're not changing the entrance rules, so it could take a year or two.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I did not participate. I'm not participating. I think I'll keep an eye on it. But I don't really want to speculate too much in stonks. Although I do think right now, if you want to make your life a little easier, you're making AI trades, and good for you. I actually am happy for everybody that's benefited from that trade. But I do think we're getting close to the moment of strategic rotation, imminent.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say that, I mean I think the window's probably 2 to 6 months.
Yeah, I can certainly see a shorter bear market this cycle. Obviously, if you want to go into the point that we didn't get that euphoric top, and bear markets every cycle do become less dramatic and possibly a little shorter. So that's possible. And then obviously, if you want to go into the July 4th angle as well, that'll cut it a little short as well. Or if it's just par for the course, we'll be looking at September, October-ish time frame. Man, and that would be roughly around the last IPO, right? Because I think all three of these IPOs are going to be summer season, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't summer season typically a slowed down season for the stock trader boys and stuff though on Wall Street? Isn't that like, and then it's usually like September, and then they get back into it. Then it's October, apparently. Remember, and then we've got rugged on that. But yeah.
Typically the summer, people are out doing shit or like vacations, like that. They're just not. That's just
Wall
not the
Street's
thing
on
to
their
do.
yachts and boats and shit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, Adam, with you bringing up the 100 trillion of assets, I think this is a good pivot here to, the theory of, hey, we got all this good news this past year plus, and Bitcoin's not doing anything price wise. And, you had them wanting to do a strategic Bitcoin reserve and all kinds of good news. Banks are buying it, institutions are getting in. It's going to become second nature here soon as far as that goes. Clarity Act. Now, if Percent wants to revalue, obviously Percent is an animal and a killer in the financial world. And if you want your treasury, you want your dollars to become important and great again, you're going to have to revalue your assets. And obviously they want Bitcoin to be one of those assets. And just think of it as like a 40 chess or whatever. If that's the goal, you're not going to want to buy Bitcoin at 120 or near the all-time highs. Yes, you're going to be, they have said the past year, yeah, we're doing Bitcoin reserve, strategic Bitcoin reserve. Having everyone, like to Gmoney's point, they're telling you to front run us here, to get what you can. And before this just totally becomes like unachievable to the average person to have a whole coin or whatever. Now, doesn't that make more sense as far as a weapon or in the fog of war type of deal in a war to reevaluate the gold, to reevaluate or to just even buy Bitcoin at 60K near the lows instead of buying it double the price. And then once you do announce all of this stuff, what the next couple year plan is for your assets and such, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't they wait and not really rush too much? And you also have to have the build out too with the data centers, the miners, and everything. To Meta's point as well, um, earlier a couple days ago. So I don't know. You want to touch on that as to why it's not necessarily. It makes sense. It makes sense. It's not like it's Copal. We got screwed here or whatever at people whoever bought at 120. But at the same time, yeah, why would anyone do that if they can foresee or kind of call the shots here?
Yeah, we were actually kind of touching on that in our portfolio update.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It seems to me like, so if you look at anything in industry, if you're going to be producing steel, I think I used that example. So if you're producing steel, well, that's a process, right? So first you have to be able to mine ore. Then you need to be able to transport or process that ore into a finer product. Then you need to smelt that ore. Then you need to, create all the infrastructure to be able to transport that to the smelter. And then the smelter from there needs to be able to transport it out to other industries. So that's a big supply chain that has to be built out. So if you're the Treasury Secretary and we're talking about changing the entire financial system, well, that's still a massive infrastructure that has end-to-end points of start and end, but it touches every single piece of the financial market, from the stock market to treasuries to you name it, ETFs to everything. So if you're going to tokenization is obviously a part of that because it's kind of lay on top of the entire blockchain. So you can't really go live with something like that until it's ready. I mean, I think you can build it kind of simultaneously on the side as your test nets. But as far as taking on the entire $100 trillion assets under management of the U.S. federal government, well, that's got to be solid and ready to go. So based on that theory, it's very possible that they could be suppressing it until they're ready. Because if this thing really starts taking off, if we have a God candle, can it even handle it with the current infrastructure it has right now? That's a big question. I don't know if anyone can answer that question. So that's just my thinking of it. If you're talking about changing an entire foundational system, that's not just like turn it on. You got to be ready.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in a stall transition right now. Like it's just this sideways action we've had for what seems like months and months, and then it's dropped, and now we're going kind of sideways again. And I think it's even with Trump and Iran, it's like how hard is it? The military was decimated apparently in the first week. So like, why is it taking so long now? I guess he's in there taking oil, but it's stalling, and it's like you say, maybe he's peace talk on. Now we're bombing. It's like it's testing the market and seeing how his tweets are. Like, well, it's rug on, rug off with the markets. Sell, panic, and then they got these IPOs. I think they're a distraction, and I don't know. I don't know. Well, let's hope July 4th is a marker because, like, and this is a distraction until then. There's a stall out. I mean, it was the same with Putin going into Ukraine. How many years now? I mean, he could have wiped basically that country off the map in probably 2-3 months max. If he wanted to, and then he just, he hasn't even got to Kiev yet. So it's like,
yeah, that's a good point.
He's not taking it over because but he could have decimated that country even with all the UN help and munitions from the States and everything that was there. Like he could have taken it over instantly, but nobody wants to talk about that, right?
Right.
And then,
that's a perfect point, man. Like, so you have all these massive changes happening, right? So yeah, like the Russia-Ukraine war is, who's that affecting right now? It's Europe, really.
Europe. Yeah.
So, and Europe, I mean, essentially, we're kind of, I don't know how you want to put it. We could just say we're gaining our independence again from the rules-based order, however you want to say it. But now they're so fucking busy with the whole Russia thing because the United States said, yo, we'll sell you weapons if you want to keep fighting it, but we're not going to just give you anything anymore. So it's on you. So now they're all like kind of tied up with that, which means that is their number one priority while we're breaking away. So they don't have the full attention to be able to try and grab us back.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by grabbing us back is putting, the public in that mindset to be able to, like, oh no, hey, we're Europe's best friend or whatever. Like, it's like they don't have the resources to be able to keep the mind control thing to push us over. So you have that going on. Then you have Iran, to exactly your point. They're already done. So what are they waiting for?
Right.
And they're waiting for something huge here. And it's probably has to do with the energy markets. And then Trump revealing that we're taking their oil right now. Dude, like,
Just a boss. That guy's a boss.
yeah, dude. Like you can see every single piece of this, all these banks intertwining Bitcoin and creating these futures markets and building it into the fabric of everything. But yet we're still on this stall pattern, just like you said.
It's a stall pattern. Like everything seems like it's just grinding along right now.
But it seems like all of these things have to align.
It seems so artificial. Yeah. So like we're waiting for the stars to align or something. And like, and then so from there, does the narrative change? Like, or like he's taking the oil. So now the gas, like, cause okay, we got midterms coming up. He's got to try to look good for the midterms. He's got panicans and people on the left and right kind of upset with him right now, and so, but he obviously going in the midterms, July 4th is probably the marker where he's going to start changing everybody's mind and they're going to forget about all this shit and they're going to just, because everything's going to be great maybe by then. And that's how Trump rolls usually. He's pretty smart. So, and so like, are we going to have a narrative change July 4th? Obviously I think we will. You probably have your interest rate cut by then maybe. And I don't know how it works for you guys down there, but is he going to kill the IRS by then? So everybody's really happy. He's obviously going to implement some kind of election security, and or is there going to be a truth Moab? Like, is he going to get the uranium from Iran and he's going to implicate Obama or something, and or the Epstein something comes up with Epstein stuff? Like, I don't know, man. Like, who knows? Like,
there's some interesting things kind of poking through, and sort of the Anon side of things with the EBS that's kind of being talked about again. And I honestly, at this point, guys, I'm just watching. I have I'm not going to, with any level of confidence, say it's this or that. I will say this. I think it's very likely that the thing, like you were saying, that we're stalling, Ryan. That's just what's in the narrative. What Ghost of Base Patrick Henry proposed something, I think like a week ago. Shout out to him because I like his thoughts on the topic of what's going on in the Middle East. And he suggested that maybe Trump's using Iran as a proxy to fight Israel. That this whole thing, that whole thing is just all, and then you see the sort of like creeping narrative that Trump is sort of unhappy with Netanyahu and saying they're on their own if they keep attacking, and just kind of planting these seeds. And why was it done this way? It's hard to say, because to a degree, it's not as much about telling a cohesive story. I think that ship has sailed, right? Like anybody watching this, it's like, what is it, like an 8-year-old writing the script here? Like, what the hell's going on? This is like, it's like a cartoon. It's like nothing makes sense if you put a little bit of thought into it. It all falls apart. So like, what is it for? And I've speculated about this before, that the things that are being that continually being put in front of us and in the algorithms are amplifying, like what's going on in California right now, the blatant election fraud, blatant, right? People are all seeing that. A lot of people that were former liberal kind of talking heads, people like Brett Weinstein and that kind of genre of commentator, are saying like, look, for all the people on this side, like, how do you answer to this obvious voter fraud? And and there's a lot of that stuff's rising to the surface too. You can see a lot of these headlines about the sort of engineered immigration issue in the West. Like a lot of these things, the stories are all very hyperbolic in kind of turning the knobs up on all of these different things across the board.
Mhm.
And I've said it before. I think there are different people, there are different levels of coming around to the sort of illegitimacy of the narrative layer that we've been living in our entire lives. And there's some kind of a reverse engineering operation happening at a scale. That's just the way I see it, but that's what it feels like. That's what it looks like. And so it's hard to comment on the narrative layer knowing that it's not legitimate and it is a lot of it's bullshit. There may be some actuals, but most of it's probably just, you know, for the purposes of headlines and for reasons that may or may not be in line with what I just said, that there's this sort of unwinding process going on for different demographic groups that are maybe just coming around to some of these realizations slower than others.
I
That's
100% agree with you on that. Like,
yeah.
especially the Israel thing. That makes a ton of sense why he's still in Iran. He ain't
Yep.
pulling out there yet because, I mean, people are getting sick of Israel. Like the
Mhm.
Gen Z and Gen X are pretty sick of it. The Boomers are probably the only supporters left of of that corrupt state, and it's like people are having enough. Like my algorithms on like Instagram are just nothing but the great noticing and all these things. I don't even go on anymore because it's too much,
Yeah.
like almost too much, like and but it's
And
it's
yeah, I
it's
mean,
very
there.
tedious. It's
to that
very
Yeah,
tedious.
point, yeah, to that point, I mean, who backs Ukraine? Who backs Iran?
exactly.
It's Israel slash London. And then
Yeah.
you got the
Yep.
13 families above that, yeah. Or you keep going up to the elite. And I just think
Yeah.
this is, especially the way it's playing out. Like a couple weeks ago, I told one of my black pill buddies, he knows his shit, but just black pill. And I'm like, dude, and he was very disheartened with what Trump has been doing in Iran. I'm like, dude, this is gonna come out here as Israel's gonna be put in the spotlight, and people are gonna realize they're the ones that are the aggressors here for the most
Yeah.
part. And obviously, we've seen that perfectly line up here the last week or two. And Trump's getting pissed because Trump has deals and BB keeps fucking them up, apparently. So now everyone gets to see this here. And
Yeah.
which goes back
And
to
he's not even inviting BB into the meetings for the deals, which is even better, right? Because
mhm,
Right.
apparently he's
Right.
BB's bitch, though everybody wants to
mhm.
say. But it's comical.
Well,
There's something
consider
going
this.
on. There's so much going on behind the scenes that we don't know. Like we didn't know until that he was taking their oil, and how long have they been doing that for? And but now we know. There's lots of things going on,
You know what's
and we won't
interesting
know.
that
Yeah,
what he said though, he said it kind of like in a very interesting way. He was like, "I've been waiting to tell people this, but I was told not to.
right.
I can tell you now," which is very interesting to me. Who told him not to, right? So there is a big group here that's working on this. It's
Absolutely.
just Trump. Do you know what I mean? It's like, hey, yeah, I can't wait to tell the American people because we're getting so freaking close, but we can't yet because we can't let the enemy know this. We can't let them know this, but we can let them know
Right.
now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That means we're already on
That
to the
damn
next piece. You know what I mean?
that
You secured Iranian oil and Venezuelan oil. What's the major
Yeah,
power play
dude,
here?
what
Like,
the
come
yeah
on,
hell?
man. Like,
Dan Scavino post with the wolf was very interesting, and of course the Patriots in control as much as you could. I don't care if you can make fun of me all you want. I think there's something notable about that. I think it kind of matters. The timing of those things, and then the sort of crescendo, this building, this kind of it's almost pouring over the top, the narrative layer, the uncertainty, and all the stuff that goes with it. But Ryan, you were saying something there about Netanyahu. The other thing too to consider is like, you know, there could be a bit of kayfabe going on there too. For all we know, there could be people that have Netanyahu might have made a deal. He might have turned a while ago. He might have, like this whole thing could be a sting operation.
it
And
could be dead with
that,
that AI shit. Who
yeah,
knows?
it
Remember
Yeah.
that?
totally,
Like,
he
we don't
totally
even
could
know what's
be.
going on. There's so much
I,
crap.
I mean,
Like,
I'm not like hanging out with Bibi Netanyahu in the Appalachian Mountains. I mean, I don't know what I'm watching. I mean, I
That's
can see
right.
things that are being presented to me, and I'm being told what I'm supposed to think of these things. I literally can't think that way anymore. I don't believe anything. I especially don't believe what I'm seeing. Now, I could see somebody getting offended by that when these horrible things are being presented to us. I'm not suggesting that those things aren't real or they aren't happening. I'm just being honest that if I can't discern between real or fake in the quality of the content or whatever's being presented to me, I have to be honest that I have no way of knowing that anything outside of my field of observation or my senses, and even then, I could be fooled by a magician. So, like, I guess
Absolutely.
just being
You're
honest, it's so hard to read this stuff and to infer from it like some kind of a theory. But I will say this:
If you want to escape the matrix, you need Bitcoin.
the underlying actuals of what is happening, and I brought this up before, but I'll reiterate it. Their entire system of control and power is being compromised. And I think leading into the topic of Bitcoin and how it plays a role in the grid, I'll kind of touch on this a little bit more. But I think that all of those pieces are on the board, and the irony is that Bitcoin seems to be a key in all of those things, as far as disrupting and displacing their control system. And
yeah.
all I see is that advancing. So when I look at things, I just look at it through that lens and I say, well, I mean, I don't know how they would exist in a world where this keeps happening. And that's all that matters to me, at least. I mean, I know that it's a bumpy ride, but I think it's kind of like the cat's out of the bag in that respect.
I think that's a very wise decision of you to just sort of you can't believe anything, especially in this day and age with AI for sure, and just all the kayfabe that goes on, and even just the false narratives. You're not going to know all the truth if we're still fighting an enemy. So how we're not going to be blessed with what's going on. We're going to know tidbits of it, but I agree with you as well. They are being defunded, and like I said many times in this podcast, that many heads of the Hydra are getting cut off, and apparently now I just saw something where the UN has actually been defunded because China and the US, the biggest backers of it, have backed out of it, and now they're on the verge of collapse. The United Nations. So I don't know if anybody can verify that, but that's where I watched a video on it yesterday, and again I have to go with some discernment, but it's if that's true, I mean that's huge. That's their funding is drying up, and then that's then their power is drying up at the same time because everything revolves around the
You
fiat.
know,
So
the capital rotation also could be, Trump. There was a day it happened back in I think 2022 when literally the oil market dropped out. It went to like negative $32, and there was a
Yeah.
bunch of people that got wrecked by that. And there
Yep.
could be in this capital rotation a bit of a game being played where, yeah, the system is being gamed, and certain people are losing more and more of their ammunition spent. Right? I don't know what the post is, but there's definitely
yeah,
been, and that's what it is, right? In this system that they've built, they've got this counterfeit form of energy that they've exploited that's given them the power. And then they've also had a choke point on the actual power, and then also killing and maiming people that, not maiming, but killing. There's a lot of mysterious deaths around alternative forms of energy and patents and all that stuff. So
absolutely.
those two points have been throughout our entire lifetimes. Have been really key to their grip on this on reality. And so those things are, it could be that maybe, because remember, Bitcoin, it's for everybody, right? So that goes for them too. They could have rotated some of their bullshit fake money into large positions, and they're being squeezed. I don't know, just a thought, but there's like so many possibilities. I know it's not very helpful to say that, but it is honest. I think anybody that's speaking with like this sort of absolute like certainty, even though I enjoy listening to some of those theories, I just think it's foolish that there's no way people can possibly know some of these things, especially if it is truly some type of a large scale military op that's been happening going
Right.
for
Yeah.
years and
Yeah.
maybe even decades, right? How the hell are you going to know? You're just some guy on YouTube.
We're
Yeah.
not, and that's
It
yeah.
isn't
So
also Scott Besant's like, didn't he say like 70% of his Adam, I think you said this, 70% of what his job is classified?
Yeah,
Like,
it's national security. Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
come on, man. Like that,
so
like, and that's the
here's
thing.
another question for you
Yeah,
guys
go
that
ahead,
just came
Ryan.
up, and I haven't even smoked a joint or anything, but my mind's going to this place here. But if you guys think about, he's securing the energy of the oil from Venezuela and from Iran. and you're building these nuclear things, and then these little reactors that can power data centers and stuff. But then you got to go back to like why they used to always hype who Donald Trump's uncle was and how he had the Tesla files and all these things, or you know what I mean? Like, is that going to come into play later too? Like, is there going to be some kind of energy,
Well,
dude,
dude,
ether or something that they be able to harness going forward
Dude.
in this golden age, or like, you know, like I don't know, like when you control the energy and you take away the power that the whatever you want to call it, the cabal has used oil for forever, as their, and apparently it's been, you know, this finite resource, which we know is now bullshit. It's not made from fossil fuel. It's not fossil fuel. It's, you know, it's not dead dinosaurs and shit like that. You know, there's all these even oil CEOs saying that's bullshit. And so, like, I don't know, you secure these energy things where they made their money, and you keep their money expended on wars that drag out, like Ukraine and Iran. And I don't know, like, there's lots coming into play right now. I don't know. It's just my
I
brain
think you
is
see
there.
it.
Sorry.
Yeah, you
Ryan,
see it
so-
already with Bitcoin and the mining.
And the Bitcoin mining. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the John Trump thing. So how crazy is it that Truth Social is partnered with the only fusion company that's actually created a reactor?
I did not know this.
It's insane.
It's awesome.
Yeah, well, kind of back slightly to the point of, you know, how like you guys said, like Scott percent, like his stuff, like everything he does is like classified, 70% of it anyway. And Adam, how you said Trump kind of said, I wasn't really able to tell you, even though I have clearance to everything.
Yeah,
I wasn't really able to tell you.
And I dictate everything.
Yeah. So, but that kind of goes to the point. If you do believe that there is like some kind of operation or plan, that's why like none of us really like, we like Trump. We love Trump for what he's doing, but you could kind of put anyone into that spot and the plan would still be
Correct.
taken out, you know, and that's
Yep.
why these 4-year elections from there on out, from Trump's first term, doesn't matter really anymore. And
Nope.
I think certainly after this one, you could argue that like the 4-year elections are going to be pretty much meaningless because the structure is going to be there, and that's what's going to be revolutionary.
Ryan, I got to go back to something you said earlier when you were talking about July 4th, that cutoff. And then I don't know, maybe the narrative shifts, like they just turn the dials and change that programming. Do you guys remember, was that Trump lost the 2020 election and all the Q FUD or just fear mongering was the giant voice? Do you guys remember the giant voice?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. That's all I started thinking about when you started talking about that, Ryan, is like basically the giant voice was taking over all broadcast so that no matter what comes from the administration, everyone can hear it, no matter what. So,
okay. I see. I see where you're. I never heard of it called The Voice though before.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, people speculated it was America's Voice, that you know, that it's like a broadcast that goes out around the world.
Yeah, okay.
It's like an emergency, and then Pompeo even commented on it. That's what a lot of people speculated it was.
Well, Pompeo did comment on it, and I think he called it the giant voice or great voice or whatever, and Trump called it the same thing. But essentially what they were explaining was like that the EBS system was so expanded, and when they haven't tested it and you don't know what it looks like yet. But essentially they were saying like any message they wanted to get across, it didn't matter where you were in the United States, you would know it. And so I think about that because you know all the talk about frequencies and things like that, like sometimes you'll notice like everyone's in a bad mood in one day, and then you could possibly explain that as like, well, it's a frequency, they're pushing a frequency. I wonder, because it always boggles my mind how we have an enemy transmission inside our country that's basically working against what Trump's trying to do.
Yeah.
And not for any other reason other than to be contrary on the surface. But if you really look at it, it truly is an enemy voice working against the country. So like, how do you fight that without looking like an authoritarian and saying like, well, we're just going to shut down CNN because they're a threat to the country. You can't do that from a perception perspective. So they must have something else that they're going to be able to do here.
Well, that kind of goes in. I'll even kind of make it a little simpler. That's the beauty of even like Starlink. Like, you don't even need any TV station or whatever,
Terrestrial, yeah.
cable
Yep.
station.
Yeah.
Like Starlink will be able to do anything almost. I think.
Yep.
Well, and that goes to
And it'll go to your
SpaceX.
phone because they made a deal
Yeah,
with Apple,
yeah.
didn't
That's
they?
right.
So
They already have it working with T-Mobile, the direct to mobile, and they're expanding it. They have plans for it. There's a recent clip of Elon talking about the bandwidth that's going to be necessary for the AI automation. That's part of it, obviously, but a lot of the newer generation satellites that they're putting up for Starlink are supposedly like 100 times more or something, or 10 times more
That's right.
bandwidth. Yeah. It is incredible technology. I've been using it now for 4 years, and honestly, when we got hit by the hurricane up here, I had no power for 10 days, but I was connected, man. I had access to the internet, and I could see what was going on around me. I couldn't even get down the road, couldn't get off the mountain because we had to basically fix the road, just me and my neighbors. And that Starlink was a godsend. And it's incredible. And I realize like the implications of that, when you start to think about surveillance and missing people, and where we were in just terms of like being connected. And you could obviously imagine an authoritarian version of that if it went wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But I was just speaking from my own experience, incredibly positive. And honestly, I think it's well worth whatever, the cost of it is now. But I expect it's going to only get cheaper the more, bandwidth they have, and the more, uh, serviceable the network becomes.
well, and you know that Starlink is part of this plan because he's been like SpaceX and Starlink. They've all been funded by the U.S. military under Trump's administrations, and
Yeah.
and then the I don't know who you want to call them. The other guys were trying to launch something to counteract it, and didn't they hired like SpaceX to do it, and didn't his rocket blow up and killed like Facebook's Leo satellites or something, and yeah, and then the Leo satellites were used to steal the 2020 election or something, apparently through over Italy. I read something like that. I don't know. This is all just whatever. But so like, and I heard that some of like Elon Musk's early satellites were taken out by bad actors too. So he obviously replaced them. Now there's just so many of them. I mean, you just can't, and I don't know if they have the capability to take them out anymore. So, but that was like something back in the day that was floated around, or I don't know how true it is, but you know that Starlink and Elon Musk is part of this like military civilian alliance. Like just the contracts he gets are, and not only is it the best company, but there's something else going on there. Him and Trump with their KFOB, and they're teaming up, and then they're supposed to fall out, and then they're teaming up again. So I don't know. It's this one day. I hope there's a 20 episode like HBO documentary movie or series on
That'd
this.
be
Shit.
awesome.
We get to watch the whole thing. You know what I mean?
10 years from now.
Yeah. 10 years from now. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
I even remember like, well, even now, like going through like my photos or whatever from like 2 years ago that I just never deleted. And it's like, holy shit, I forgot about this. I forgot about that. Like, even though we're living through it, we ain't going to remember half of the daily, monthly things that were going
That's
on
right.
at the end of the
I think
day.
when we look back on this, it's going to seem incredibly obvious, like stupid obvious.
I do too.
What was going on. And I think the interesting thing about all of Elon's companies and this idea that, not saying he might not be an exceptional genius. He clearly looks like he's carrying this, but there's some really fishy things going on. I mean, the gaming thing, I don't know if you guys know much about that. There was an allegation that he was faking being good at this game.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it.
World of
And
Warcraft.
it's just very
yeah.
straight. Yeah, it wasn't World of Warcraft. It was another one, but he didn't know certain things that a player as good as him would have known. Anyway, I don't know. It's speculative, but the interesting thing is like look at what each one of these technologies does. You've got automation, you've got the self-driving, you've got the communication, you've got potentially wireless power transmission, like things that General Quast talks about. That might be somehow related. You've got the Boring Company, which is underground high-speed bullet trains and potentially travel, innovation of travel, and whoever. I mean, they're down there supposedly doing things, from what I understand. And then what am I missing? There are probably others. They just all seem to like play a
Early.
role in the golden age, right? Like this idea of a golden age, right? They all seem to have some element of the infrastructure. And like I said, this may sound stupid in the future because it seems like it's that obvious. It seems like it's so obvious that it can't be. It can't be that, like
Hmm.
how could it be that obvious? But
Yeah.
and it
Now,
is all, Space Force is essentially, it's hard to know where the lines are drawn between um, SpaceX and Space Force.
Mm-hmm.
right. Now, Meta, I'm going to throw it here to you once again here after this last wrap up point for the reevaluation that I forgot to mention is that obviously we need to outgrow our debt. We need to run things hot. And that's the importance of this reevaluation as to why would they add Bitcoin as an asset, as a strategic reserve when it's near the all-time highs when they announced it compared to at half the price. Now, granted, at the end of the day, it probably wouldn't even matter at the end of the day to where Bitcoin will eventually go. But it just goes into that 4D chess type deal of like, yes, we are running this hot. We are going to be cutting rates at some point, and we have to outgrow the debt. And that is how you outgrow the debt. You revalue the gold, possibly rug pull the gold in afterward, sell it, and the land, everything that's on the balance sheet, and that will include Bitcoin at some point. So, but Meta, I
Well,
want to talk. Yeah.
oh, go ahead. No, the
So.
gold reevaluation is supposed to come between like $5,100 and $6,300 by the
Mhm,
end of the year.
mhm.
And so if you out at Fort Knox and there's a whole bunch of gold in there, and then they use it and they sell it to buy Bitcoin and get rid of the debt because they revalue it to even higher than that potentially. Who knows? I mean, what's it valued at? $30 or something right now? $35?
Like
Yeah.
You know,
$42.
$42.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're going to revalue it. I mean, and then so they pay off all this debt, and then if who knows, maybe they reveal how much gold's in the Grand Canyon, and now gold's freaking worthless. So now Bitcoin is the number one asset again. So like, who knows?
True
I don't know.
scarcity. Yeah.
True
Yeah.
scarcity. Yeah. You
Now,
know.
Meta, I want to throw it to you here now. With the talking about obviously all of this here that we just talked about the last 20 minutes or so. The grid is very important here,
Uh-huh.
and you brought something to our attention, as far as like a video and for from the Bitcoin layer. Do you want to touch on this? Do you want to kind of like
Yeah.
break this down here for us?
Yeah. Nick Bhatia and was speaking with Daniel Batten, and this is an interesting. For me, it had a little bit more weight because I speculated about this. I think as early as late 2023. I could see, and I was hearing stories about how Bitcoin was um, helping the grid in I can't remember what area in Texas, but they were basically relying on it because grid stability, right? The grid works. It's supply and demand. There's nowhere to store the energy, and when you have renewables like wind and solar, you have peak times, right, where they have more energy than there's demand for, and there's really it's very sensitive, right? Like the transformers and the way that the actual grid is set up, they can't, there's really it's a really tricky thing to balance a grid with especially when you're feeding it with all these different sources of energy. And so, in the spirit of that, basically what he was disclosing was that somebody he had inside information. He was announcing it there on the show that he was aware of a data center, I believe, in Europe somewhere,
I think
and
it
you can
was
watch
it
it. And
Sweden?
it might have been Sweden or the Netherlands. Anyway, the point was is that they had basically been being paid by the grid manager to spin up ASICs, as they called them. They were Bitcoin has a negative connotation because of their green agenda, all the greenwashing and the brainwashing that's gone along with that. Essentially, it is becoming the most dynamic way to give that excess energy a place to go when they're producing more energy, and they can throttle it up and down as needed because AI and the demands of data centers and the AI it's very it spikes. It's very hard to manage it because the demand spikes up and then it drops. So it's very volatile, the energy usage. So the Bitcoin essentially normalizes the grid and stabilizes the grid. And he was even talking about the way that it's starting to be marketed as in those terms, like it's an ASIC grid stabilization technology. So they're not even calling it Bitcoin mining. But the gist of it was that this person that he talked to said that their cost of energy was -2 cents. So you can imagine the incentives there to mine and to mine on demand. And then he said it was even getting to the point now where AI data centers, they were almost talking about this as their AI data centers that are either planning to or at least are already implementing Bitcoin mining as a part of their infrastructure inside of the walls of the data center. That they have that. I described it as a teeter totter back in when I was, knocking around the idea. I shared it with a few people because I went back to them and said, hey, when was I talking about this? And I just thought of it from a logical standpoint, and it wasn't even. That's why I was so interested in Mara when they announced they were going to be using um, their cooling infrastructure to run AI compute and ASICs in the same sort of like uh, cooling and power infrastructure. But eventually, I think even Fred Thiel hinted that there may be a type of processing technology that allowed you to toggle between the two in even less time. Because that was the other thing too. You only have a couple of options when it comes to stabilizing a grid if you have spiking input. And one of them is battery technology, which of course is you store the energy and then you use it later. So you create like almost like a hybrid system. That's incredibly expensive for obvious reasons. It is. He said it was a little bit faster than Bitcoin, but that Bitcoin, the ASICs were really pretty fast, and that from a cost perspective, they were actually much better
Yeah, there
than
was what
better
like
technology.
yeah, like four categories that they graded it on, and the battery was the only one that was better than the other options was the speed of it, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
and so you can imagine where this is going. If Bitcoin becomes a necessary part of our existing infrastructure, because we do have to transition from old to new. And so that's what we're talking about here is creating this stable, because if you have all this new energy technology, yeah, it's decentralized and you can maybe, you can imagine, oh, well, each house will have a reactor or we'll put a reactor in different neighborhoods and you've got this. But the key with this is I can kind of almost see it as a military strategy too, because what you're doing is you're letting all of these alternative sources of energy develop in parallel with each other, and you're creating essentially a normalization layer for those inputs. So it's brilliant from that perspective, if that actually was it. And then you think to yourself, how could that be an accident? Because he even says that we all talk about the monetary benefits of Bitcoin, and he definitely is a Bitcoin guy. But he's like, maybe the way that it breaks through in the mainstream is through the benefits of the existing grid and grid stability. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, it just happens to be both of those things and software, power projection, bit power, and all the other things it can do, security, cybersecurity, and
Hmm.
um, it's like tokenization, right? Like it's like kind of weird that this one thing is really good at all of these. You can't even. I mean, and that's just
Yeah.
what we're talking about. And it's like I use the term. It's the engineering. If that is indeed how it plays out, I'm just saying this. Even just from my and I by no means am an expert level. I just can kind of see the patterns here. Breathtaking and absolutely beautiful level of engineering in
Hmm.
in a way that I can't even like express how like eager I am to see how this plays out, but also how incredibly like run through a fucking wall bullish it makes me
Yeah.
when I see that. Because that one, you literally get the people that are opposed to Bitcoin to root for it as long as you don't call it Bitcoin. And it's
Yeah.
like, fine, whatever, we'll call it whatever you want. And then
It,
all of a sudden it just yeah.
Dude, I agree that video was awesome. And the whole time though, when I was listening to it, I'm like, Mara. I kept thinking
Yeah.
about Morrow and
Yeah.
Morrow. And then also to Ryan's earlier point of Trump's uncle and Nikola Tesla
Hmm.
and free energy. Like we've always thrown around that Bitcoin was free energy and like mining and stuff like that. But like this is actually like coming to fruition now. Like that was like in previous years. Yeah, the theory was there. It made sense. Like, yeah, but it was a lot harder to see through that, through the fog, I guess, of the earlier years. But now with like AI, it's this past like 6+ months now, at least for me, I'm starting to actually see how this piece is starting to come together here to get to free energy
Yeah.
eventually. And like you
Yeah. Think
said,
about
-2 cents. So
yeah.
like, yeah, go ahead.
think about the strategy, right? Because if you were, let's say somebody did develop these micro reactors, right? These modular reactors, which it sounds like they already are either developed or are being developed. And then you take things that General Quast talks about with, beaming energy, it being essentially wireless and all these things. You still have challenges with things as they are. And you still have the period of time to roll things out. And if you were to roll it out incrementally, I think if we, who's to say how long we're going to be facing an adversary in that respect that is losing their grip and losing their power structure, they would have opportunities to push back. But if you did it this way, you could completely sidestep their ability to fight back against the actual improvement of the grid. Then you could introduce the other technologies on top of it, and it could be literally like an off-ramp and an on-ramp sort of intersecting with each other. So you're like moving away from the centralized nature of grids, you're fortifying the grids, they break into smaller chunks, smaller and smaller and smaller until it's so decentralized. Because the truth is that, they say if like the entire grid went down and we lost power, that was always seemed to be a threat, right? Like the power's going to go out, they're going to shut the power down, they're going to destroy the grid, or there's going to be some kind of an EMP or some kind of an attack on it. It's like, well, if it was decentralized and you had huge portions of the grid that were isolated from that kind of an attack, and some of them even behind Faraday technology to protect it from that, and all of a sudden that threat is off the board completely. And until that happens, right, the question is like, can they fortify it? I mean, there's enough battery backups and things like that where you wouldn't have a complete blackout. You're always going to have now, there's quite a widespread market for these batteries and solar panels and these, retail technologies. I use myself that are, pretty damn good. They do the job. They'll keep your fridge running, keep some lights on, plug your Starlink, and that exists today. So I feel like it's only going to get more fortified, and I can't help but look at it through that strategic lens, right? So I just think it's incredibly compelling. I was so stoked to talk about this because when Krash and I talked yesterday, I was like, I didn't really see anything, and then that pops up in my feed literally as soon as I got off of Discord, and I was like, oh, this will be good, like this is super exciting.
We're Space Marines of the Infantry Corps. We're marching strong as we march into war.
Hey, Meta, so talking
Go
through this, I was like, didn't Trump sign an executive order about modernizing and securing the grid? So
I believe he did.
Sure enough, yes, on April 8th, 2025, President Trump signed Executive Order 14262. So titled it, Strengthening the Reliability and Security of the United States Electric Grid. So here's some things about what you're talking about, right? So directs the Department of Energy to streamline and expedite emergency orders under the Federal Power Act to keep critical power generators running during forecasted shortfalls. So those have to be running when there is no load.
Right.
And how else do you take that load without Bitcoin? Right?
Battery technology or Bitcoin, as far as I understand.
Yeah, battery technology or Bitcoin. Yeah. Right. Then it's mandates DOE to develop and apply uniform methodology for analyzing capacity safety buffers across all regions of the bulk power system. Same thing. So it requires the identification of generation resources that are critical to system reliability and seeks to ensure those facilities, especially with plants over 50 megawatts, remain online. So in other words, the power has to be constantly streaming. Yeah, but you have to load balance, right? So you already know what your peak times are, 3 to 9 or whatever they are typically in a city. And then overnight your demand's low. But essentially that EO is saying like we need this power generating at full capacity at all times.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that point. The whole peak time thing goes away. If the grid managers have access to nodes on the actual grid network that actually are running ASICs, grid stabilization technology, well, that's a thing of the past. You just pump in all the energy you collected from all the sources you can, and you normalize it in that layer of Bitcoin miners that are doing the thing. And that is, awesome.
See that terahash just grow and grow. That's it.
Oh, dude, the hash rate.
That's going to tell you how fast the grid's growing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you know what? And as an added benefit, you get to store your wealth on the network that relies on that constant stream of energy.
Right. And then also too, I think you might have touched on it briefly, that adds to the hash rate. That add all of these different miners now coming online, the big miners like we are seeing because of AI for the grid, that only pumps out more hash rate and more security for
Yep.
Bitcoin. Even though Bitcoin is, I would say, kind of unstoppable security wise at this point. Like what is it, like over like 9 US navies or something? You need that power, and that's just only for 10 minutes yet too, if you want to break
You want,
through the security.
yeah, that's the amount of power that all the nuclear reactors of the Navy combined. You want to hear a really sad statistic, though?
Oh,
The amount of energy that online pornography uses is about 6 times that amount.
Really?
holy.
Yeah, just let that sober you up a little bit. So we got a lot
Yeah.
of work to do.
Yeah, okay. All right.
We got an
But
army of gooners to save.
Gooners, yeah. Well, if only they could monetize their WAS.
this is certainly going to strengthen it then.
Oh,
No
yeah,
doubt.
dude, it's hard to even imagine what the actual hash rate's going to be when this starts to kind of get rolling. But
Right.
it's probably going to. He was suggesting this is he suggest. Well, my read on this, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts were, Crash. If you watched the whole video, if you guys haven't watched it, you definitely go watch it. Um, he suggested that we were literally like incredibly close to this becoming um, publicly known, and that because Nick asked him, well, what does this mean for a Bitcoin investor? And really, I think it means exactly what you would think. I think it's good, right?
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the price is going to reflect it right away, but he said that the world is just around the corner from this being publicly available information and known and
Well, it has to
understood.
be. It has to
Yeah,
be. Because even to the earlier point, no one gives a shit about monetary, anything monetary. They don't give a shit. They ain't worried about it. They had 17 years now to worry about that. And, well, longer than that. But
bro, did you see how big the fart coin market cap got? Yeah, I don't think the monetary plays is it.
yeah, yeah, you will get the diehards, like everyone who has been here the first 17 years. But I think, like he said, for the mainstream, there has to be something else here for the mainstream. I thought maybe it was the cybersecurity, which that's still a possibility. But
Oh, I think it's an absolute. I think that's absolutely the way. They're already doing that. They're already running the tests.
mhm,
I think that just hardens it. But it's
yeah,
so weird because we don't have anything else we can compare this to, where it's got all of these use cases that it solves better than anything that was independently designed or engineered for each individual use case.
yeah, I think this angle though is going to be the soft kill for people to realize what it even is, and it. I think he's right. I think this is going to be probably the avenue that most people are going to come to find Bitcoin or AI. It's going to be through AI, and which is fine, whatever. But it's certainly going to be a different mentality than a lot of us the
Well,
previous
this goes
17
back
years.
to Larry Fink calling compute its
Yes,
own class.
Hmm.
yeah. Although I don't know that selling futures on compute is as big of a deal if you have this constant building, multifaceted, or I guess diverse energy portfolio of inputs, because you just always can measure that you'll have enough energy to meet demand. If you can just add, across all of the different, it's like an energy portfolio, right? Like you want to do natural gas, nuclear, solar, wind, and it's just like pick one, but the point is that you've got enough compute on tap because you have enough power on tap. Now the question is like what, because obviously right now, from what I understand, there are some real bottlenecks as far as the amount available, and there's also a lot of waste, right? Like we're subsidizing the cost of using AI right now pretty excessively. But you know what's interesting about that? I don't necessarily know it's a bad thing because it's all measured in Federal Reserve notes. So maybe that's another part of the strategy, that they're using that to kill, and that there will be some type of a transition to a different currency, maybe a sovereign U.S. note that's available to everybody in the world. via stable coins or something. I don't know, but that would be another cool way to play that in there too.
Dude, good Lord. I almost want to go back to the Jensen Nguyen interview where he talks about Bitcoin as stored energy and AI as stored energy as well, and how those two coexist. Man, that was a great interview. It might make a lot more sense from this lens.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Yeah.
Every day that goes by now, since the last couple of weeks, I'm like, Mara seems to be like looking at us in the face as well as to be like possibly a very good pickup. I
I definitely think that the play in general as a sort of a backstop or a hedge, whatever you want to call it, in terms of like asset classes, that energy and infrastructure, if you can get a broad enough exposure to that, I don't see that as a bad idea or even overly speculative, because no matter what happens, we're going to need more energy and going into the future regardless. And it's just a question of, if you can get exposure to it in a broad enough way where you're not picking winners. But I do think there's something to the fact that Trump holds Mara common, and they seem to be somehow read in. I think it's interesting that literally G had Fred Thiel on the show and he went on the show. I think that is notable. So,
Interesting.
Did you ever watch that episode?
No,
I don't think I did either. Yeah, you're
wow.
You guys are.
Was it recent or was it recent?
No.
Okay.
I want to say it was probably 24, maybe 23 that he was on. Yeah, go back and watch it.
I don't remember that. I might have seen it, but I don't remember it.
It's not like the Sailor episode. I mean, Sailor was that was a good one, but it was cool because G basically did the same format he does with everybody, and yeah, I just think it's more notable that Fred Thiel, like, I don't think guys like that just do things like that. I don't think that was just a random. I mean, I guess G is also a Bitcoin guy, so maybe it is, maybe it's just. But I think anybody that goes on Rug Pull Radio and talks to Gmoney, they got to know a little bit about where this guy's.
They know the landscape and the framing that they're gonna get on that show. So
right.
Yeah, they're not gonna walk in no traps, that's for sure. Yeah, okay, I am certainly gonna be watching that here now. But yeah, it's amazing. So, Meta, I'm gonna put you a little bit on the spot here once again because you brought this up. Did you want to touch on this for a few minutes about the Bitcoin home mortgages?
Yeah, I just wanted to cover it just because it's real. Okay, it's not the Bitcoin mortgage that I think people's reserve is. I don't think it's structured the same way. Essentially, what it boils down to, and I posted a whole thing from Yahoo Finance about how it actually works. That I'll just kind of pull up here as a reference point. So basically, you put your Bitcoin up as collateral for the down payment, and then that's one loan, and then there's a mortgage, and apparently from listing to close was 23 days, so it went very quickly compared to traditional mortgages. And the Bitcoin is it has to drop past a certain LTV before you have the option to add collateral, but there's no liquidation risk, right? So it works more like a margin call, right? So you have a chance to actually put more Bitcoin up if there's a huge drawdown. So obviously, if we continue to go through cycles, it might make sense to make these decisions at market lows or closer to the 200-week moving average, which is kind of what this person did. So I'm going to give them credit for that. But basically, it just legitimizes Bitcoin, and it gives it a use case that you can't get with any other asset class until they tokenize. And they even talk about that in the article, that you could potentially in the future, if you've tokenized securities, you could use those as collateral as well in the same way, right? Now, I would look at this and just say, okay, look, this is basically, if you get your portfolio big enough, you can essentially tap margin for the down payment and essentially get a similar thing. The benefit this has is it's Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and they roll it into one loan. And basically, the Bitcoin is collateralized and locked up until the loan is serviced or satisfied. So my understanding is with the People's Reserve product that's launching on July 4th, if Bitcoin goes up in value and you end up past a certain LTV, you can actually remove some of that Bitcoin that you've put up for collateral, which I like the flexibility of that. But anyway, I think it's incredibly good, big step forward for the mainstream. It makes Bitcoin, it makes the argument that Bitcoin doesn't serve a purpose, even though we all know it does, for a normie it pretty much in their face says, yeah, well, try this out, right? Try doing this with your shiny rocks. I don't think people are going to be taking physical gold. But what'll be ironic is you'll be able to in the future tokenize GLD and use that. So,
Yeah.
but I think it's pretty notable, and it's a pretty big step forward. And the fact that this just happened is the first one, I think it's incredibly bullish, midterm to long term. Obviously,
I
that yeah,
also too, man. I forgot about it launching in July 4th. So
it,
there's another
Oh, no way.
little streak going into the July 4th theory.
yeah. Let me just really quick run through the super simple version of how it works. I got this
Yeah,
from
please.
Grok. So you want to buy a house, but you don't have enough cash, right? If you're smart, you're cash poor and you hold your wealth in assets. And if you're really smart, you hold most of it in Bitcoin. So instead of selling your Bitcoin, which would trigger taxes if you're into that sort of thing, um, and you would lose future upside, you actually pledge it, so you still have upside exposure. You get your down payment. And Coinbase has this, by the way. This is part of their infrastructure, and you get two loans that are rolled into one. A normal mortgage on the house, the main one, backed by Fannie Mae. So the rates are competitive. However, I did hear they were slightly higher. And then you get a smaller separate loan backed by your Bitcoin that covers the down payment of cash. And then I did hear on Finance, Yahoo Finance, it says they somehow roll them together, so you have a single payment. So it's from an actual servicing perspective, it's no different than getting a regular mortgage. The difference is you just didn't have to come up with seasoned funds or anything like that. You didn't have to go through the dance of getting a mortgage where you pretty much get every orifice probed. Um, a smaller separate loan, and then you make payments on the mortgage like usual, and the Bitcoin stays locked up. If Bitcoin's value drops a lot or past the LTV, you might have to add more collateral, like a margin call. But the setup is designed to be relatively borrower friendly. Um, so that's the other cool thing is this is government backed, essentially Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, conforming a mortgage has used Bitcoin this way. This makes it more mainstream, accessible, and potentially cheaper than previous crypto-only loans. So that's the other thing too. Is there are products out there that have existed, but they do charge more interest, and the Yahoo article goes into that. Either way, this is a big step forward in that respect. It doesn't sound like something I would be interested in, and I would be looking for something a little bit more flexible. And I'm starting to get to the point where I like the flexibility of the idea of using margin more strategically. It just gives me a little bit more control over what assets I would be using as collateral. However, I do like the idea of a streamlined combination of the mortgage and the loan if you need to take one. And that, yeah, I think it's nothing but wins in terms of the use case for Bitcoin as pristine collateral.
Yeah, good news after good news.
Well, additionally, doesn't it really incentivize people to hold assets versus speculate
Yes,
in assets?
Mhm.
I'm glad you brought that up, Adam. I missed that. Was one of the most important parts that points that somebody else missed. That Bitcoin is locked up for potentially 30 years.
Right.
So that just means there's less supply being traded. All of this stuff is all very bullish for fiat measurement of Bitcoin. And yeah, that's an incredible point to make. And you can imagine if this really catches on, right? You're basically telling borrowers that, hey, don't save up for your house in fiat, buy Bitcoin and keep saving in Bitcoin, right? So then when you're ready and you have enough dollar value of Bitcoin to meet that requirement and get this type of loan certified, you're not giving that money away and locking it up in your mortgage. You're putting the asset on the sidelines. And of course, if Bitcoin does go up to a certain point where it makes sense to maybe do a refinance, whatever that looks like, you could probably at that point unlock some of it and take some off the table and put it to work in other places in your life. But it's
Not
ultimately,
to
yeah,
mention, let's say you just go the term of the loan, now you have a Bitcoin and a house.
exactly,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's really no way to compare it to a standard down payment because you're essentially taking advantage of the strategy that really is behind like things like infinite banking and you know velocity banking, essentially tapping lines of credit that are simple interest, right? Borrowing against your assets, not selling them. Mark Moss 101, essentially.
yeah, yep,
They're dragging people, the younger generation, probably more than anything, but they're dragging them down the financial education road, whether they know it or not. So it's good.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
It's encouraged, which is totally the opposite of fiat world, which debt is encouraged. and consumption. So, and
Yep.
this is
I feel like we talk about the Q post all the time, structure, and that is what we see and in the news every week, and that's seems like what we talk about every single time we get together and talk. Just more and more structure,
Mhm.
easily seen.
Well, how else? You got more structure. You got Walmart now accepting Bitcoin. I mean, how
Yeah,
else do you normalize it for the
Oh
normies, right?
yeah,
You got
I
the normies living in Walmart every day, and they're going to be, what? You can pay with Bitcoin? What's this? Maybe I should
you know
get
what it
some.
you know
Yeah.
what it is? It's through their One Pay app. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. I've never looked at it, but apparently they're going to allow for purchases of crypto. So I'm assuming they're going to have something
Oh,
like PayPal, but that I think they might have something. I don't know if it's like direct, like you can like a lightning payment or something. I think it's going to be through that app that you'll just be able to use whatever your balance is, and it'll just draw from basically like Cash App works today. So um, I'm not sure if that's as big of a deal, and that people would even use it, especially that demographic. It's hard to say,
yeah.
but maybe.
Well, so think about it like this. So Walmart's incentivized to do it because I
Yeah,
forget
Cayman.
who's the other one who did it. Was it Block?
Yeah,
Where
the Cash App card. Yeah,
Cash App,
there's
right?
there's no fees.
So to break down why this is so good from the merchant's perspective is they will convert your dollars instantly into Bitcoin, make the payment in Bitcoin, and convert it right back to
Yeah,
dollars for the merchant, bypassing any merchant fees
yeah,
or
Oh,
just a very nominal fee, whatever it is to transact. So the user or the customer wouldn't even know it.
yeah, yeah. If they do that, they're going to have to probably use some layer two. They're going to probably have to use Lightning or
It
Liquid.
has to be a layer two. Yeah,
Yeah,
it has to
yeah.
be.
yeah, because but that's basically what Cash App's doing. I would imagine that because that's the model that's already been built, they'll probably try to emulate it. Yeah.
I hate bringing this up because it's a boring topic, but it's not. Like, has anyone done any research into like how those layer twos work?
Yeah, a little bit. Lightning and then Liquid. I've played around with it
It's
in Aqua.
it, it's really fascinating because I think if people understood how those worked, they would stop thinking that someone's going to create a better Bitcoin because
Yeah,
it basically opens a channel on a block, and the channel can hold millions upon hundreds of millions of transactions and
yeah,
close out on that same block. So
yeah,
all those transactions could be like a very small fraction of a percent collected on all those massive transactions done on a channel, and then they only pay that one transaction fee to write it on the Bitcoin block.
yeah. You just need liquidity in the channels,
That's it. You
and
you have to be able to float it, and that's it. Yeah.
yeah, and if
Mhm.
yeah, Lightning's great. I've used it plenty. I use it a lot when if I'm doing sends between like River and anything else that has it. It's obviously the fees are really low. It's fast. It's great, and Liquid's great too. Liquid, you can do swaps. You can peg in and out right from a layer one or layer two and layer one Bitcoin. You can also swap between Tether and Liquid Bitcoin and Liquid Tether. So
Yeah.
essentially, yeah,
It's crazy that all of this exists, and most of the crypto bros have no clue. Like they're always talking about, well, this is faster. This is
Yeah. Zcash,
safer, whatever, or
Ethereum.
cheaper, or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like,
faster is literally like the least important thing to talk about when we're talking
yeah,
about
it's
these
just,
things.
yeah,
It's like,
wrong focus, fellas.
yeah, but if you really want to talk about that, Lightning is literally incredibly fast. I mean, people
Right.
critics of it will say, "Oh, it'll never support the Krash." It's like it's a network. Networks grow. That's what networks do. And as it
Mhm.
gets more and more people using it, and it has been Lightning. If you look at the numbers behind it, it's incredibly
Oh,
it's really impressive how
meta.
much. Yeah,
So remember we were talking about how all these other cryptos are going to be opened up to AI finding security vulnerabilities.
yeah.
What just got released last night?
What?
Anthropic's Mythos.
Oh,
That's the
oh, okay.
Yeah,
the
that's the version that they had to hold back because it was finding security flaws in the financial system.
okay.
Yes, yeah. I
That
did
just
hear
got
about that.
released last night, dude. So like,
Oh,
Join the transition transmission. Like, share, and subscribe to Frogs and Friends.
wow.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm a little nervous. See, here's the thing. I will say, not that I'm the type of person to lean into fear, but I will say I'm a little I used Morpho and I used it once and I felt a lot better when I got my collateral back. It wasn't a lot, I mean, in terms of percentage wise, but I just think to myself, like, that's Ethereum smart contracts that are powering that thing. And then there's other
yeah,
protocols like Salt, and then there's all these other, they're all DeFi and Abra, whatever Abra uses, I think they use Aave. Anyway, the point is I feel like that's a really scary proposition considering what just happened to Zcash and what potentially could happen. And Sam Samao literally said it, right? Like, hey,
yeah,
this AI is going to wreck DeFi. It's going to drain wallets. And I'm like, uh, yeah, like how many loans are on, are there on Bitcoin right now in DeFi?
yeah,
And you might have like layers deep, right? You could have wrapped Bitcoin, which is Ethereum. It's basically you lock up your Bitcoin and you get WBTC, and then the whole idea is that you can move it around a lot faster and cheaper, ironically. But it's ETH. It's like you've got like layers of just complexity and vulnerability. And yeah, like I just feel like that's going to be a really bad story. I could even see it being a FUD event that
Yeah.
causes a panic.
yeah.
But
Because with the recent Bitcoin price action, basically all but killing crypto as it is right now, they are literally just kind of sitting ducks for this to just wipe it out.
Mhm.
yeah, it makes me feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can see that. And that could be the last depending on how soon this happens, that could be where the last leg comes from. Down, you know?
Yeah,
And because we always have that weird thing in the bear markets, like at the end, that gives us that final leg down. And that could be an option. And it seems like it probably will happen, sad to say. But at the end of the day, that does make Bitcoin all the more stronger. So,
Well, yeah,
the undisputed king. That's what it makes it. Yeah,
yeah,
mhm.
there'll be a lot of like panic selling and things like that. But the eventual conclusion that people come to realize is people that had their Bitcoin properly secured, or if exchanges that had proper security and custodians that had proper security, and they weather the storm. All that people are going to see is that this is the only safe place to keep. But because the other thing you got to realize is if it's going to be able to do that to DeFi, then we're starting to get into the topic realm of agentic swarms and attacks on like banking institutions in the traditional
yep,
finance system, which is encoded logic. There is absolutely no way that will eventually not be at risk of just a constant swarm of intelligent agentic beings.
Mhm. Yeah. Very interesting here. Moving on here to one of our final topics here. Ryan, you wanted to talk about how Bitcoin is the cure. You want to kind of I'm going to throw the ball here to you and tell us why you kind of wanted to talk about this week.
Well, I mean, we all know why the why Bitcoin's awesome. I mean, we're what we're here for. But I was listening to a podcast with Breedlove the other day, and he's talking about how fiat is the actual Ponzi scheme, and those at the top get all the money, and we're all the ones carrying the bag for them, and people just can't see that, and they actually with Stockholm syndrome, they almost protect it like angrily if you suggest Bitcoin, like they attack Bitcoin and defend this fiat debt slave system. And but yeah, I mean, like, the sailor said it best: why spend energy, your personal energy, for a currency that melts when you could buy Bitcoin? And it's all the benefits of Bitcoin that we talk about and that we've been talking about. And I don't know, it's definitely it's going to be the backbone of our future, and this golden age that I hope that we're moving into sooner than later. And it's the opposite of a central bank digital currency, which they have the power to shut off or make you spend or lose it, or this is total sovereignty, and then you get into the digital 1776 software aspect of it as as a weapon and a protection. And yeah, I don't know. You guys can want to expand on that as well. I mean,
Certainly, Bitcoin is here. If we didn't have Bitcoin, then I think that's where all of the doomerism comes from. And obviously, you still get doomerism within crypto or within the Bitcoin field. But if Bitcoin wasn't here, it would be revelation, hell on earth.
Well,
Great, dude.
here's a thought, and it's completely speculation, and it might be stupid because obviously I don't have the technical experience or knowledge of what I'm about to suggest might be something that ends up existing in the future. But imagine a future where the sort of teeter-totter effect of Bitcoin load balancing the grid and against AI, and maybe even to the point where you have the same processor sharing those two functions, right? You flip back and forth from compute or AI use to Bitcoin. Could you not potentially use that then to address the potential AI swarm threat? Because you could essentially you could detect if the compute that was causing the threat
Yes.
reached a certain profile or level of power use where you actually could just flip it back to Bitcoin mining programmatically and essentially neuter the swarm or the agents that
That's
were
a great
using that
point.
compute. I don't know. It just feels kind of like maybe that could be part of the story there. I don't know. Could be wrong.
Well, this goes back to I keep going to this with Larry Fink calling compute an asset. So Bitcoin is literally at that substrate level because energy is the substrate level. Like nothing moves without energy. So then you have Bitcoin sitting on top of that energy layer, which is computing. Then you have AI sitting on top of that energy layer, which is computing. They're both doing the same thing, but they're two different functions. So like that is the very backbone of everything. So it already is at that infrastructure layer. So yeah, that would make sense. You could just switch in between. Like, hey, if we have something too powerful that's pushing through AI that's destroying other markets, well, Bitcoin's there to basically exactly what you said, neuter the power. So switch the power to mining versus AI.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the threat on a chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, because how else? Like, so we always have that Terminator scenario of Skynet. Like, how else do you control it?
Mm-hmm.
right. So like, I'm not a computer geek here, so this is where I kind of get lost in the Bitcoin verse here. Is when you start like, do any of you guys run a node?
I
No.
personally don't. No.
Okay,
No.
so like I'm pretty sure I was listening to a podcast about somebody running a node, and this probably goes into software and the AI and just like all the stuff where it's like it imposes, you can impose a cost on somebody trying to attack you, obviously, and you can set it up. So I'm pretty sure it was actually on one of the Gmoney's real early podcasts when I was listening way back, and you could run a node and set it up that every time something tries to attack or even guess your seed phrase, that it imposes a fee on them, like you have to pay to try to guess this fee, and then it just you're just gonna not have, you're just not gonna get attacked, or you're gonna get
Right.
they're
It
gonna run
filters
out. They're gonna
itself
run out
out.
of they're going to run out of ammunition to attack you if they keep, if they attack and miss. So I don't know, but that's where technical guys come in, and I'm not one of those guys. I'm, as you can see, I'm redneck like.
Think
Yeah.
of it like this, Ryan. If I had let's say an army of agents at my disposal, I had my own model, and I basically, the only thing between me and using those agents was their ability to consume energy, right? That's the only way AI works. It has to trade your inputs for energy. It needs real input, because behind the scenes, right, wherever the models are living, it's going to lean on the hardware, the processing that AI needs, and the compute, and then its ability to pull the power out of your wall socket, right? So if you somehow could triangulate, if say for example there was a real threat, it would use might even have a certain power signature or something like that, I'm again, I'm just speculating here, But if you then at that level, at that sort of base layer, could pull the power away from it, in a sort of like the way a valve would open or close, based on whatever information you're getting, and maybe that's also controlled by some kind of an AI that's countering it, some kind of an agent detection system, then you could just simply choke off its food supply and uh,
Mm.
and stop
Well,
it in its
Meta,
tracks, right?
to your point,
Theoretically,
really ties back to a token.
yeah. And it also kind of starts to kind of drift a little bit into the realm of software.
Mhm.
Now, how that plays out and how it kind of bolts into that logic, I don't know. I'm just throwing this thought out there. It's crude. It might be somebody who knows how all of this stuff works technically might laugh at it, but it just seems kind of like maybe a logical, way to kind of cap the FUD on AI is gonna do bad things. Because I think whatever AI does, if it is bad, it will be in the interim while we're transitioning into this system that is, benevolent, right? Not malevolent.
Mhm.
Well,
Well,
maybe
now
we'll get lucky and somebody in the comments will watch this video and clarify something for us. Because I mean, I still drive a combustion vehicle and ride horses for crying out loud. So it ain't going to be me that's going to explain this
we're
to you guys. But
we'll get a comment like Meta's retarded and F this conspiracy slop.
yeah, yeah. The copism. But no,
Yeah.
that kind of goes to the theory that we brought up a couple weeks ago of how you needed internet first, how you needed
Mm.
Bitcoin second, how you needed
yeah,
it last. Because if AI would have came out before Bitcoin, we would obviously that would fall into the doomerism because there was nothing to keep the AI in check. And then you get your central bank coins and stuff like that. You get all of that shit that
mhm.
was thrown onto us, even just a couple years ago, as the doomerism, black pillars, and such like that. But yeah, I think Bitcoin does change the landscape, does change the
So
game, does change the future.
speaking of that, this goes back to an episode where I missed you guys, but you guys talked about warp speed, Operation Warp Speed. Now, it was
Mhm.
Operation Warp Speed? There was all talking about, oh, it's how we're rushing this damn vaccine or whatever. But was it? I actually think it was. Was it to like show people in real time, like like you pick, take those it's not stop motion, but it's like where you take a picture of a plant and it grows and you can see it grow and it's like accelerated photography or whatever. And then is that like to make people wake up? And was it also to accelerate this agenda here? Like you can't have make them push their CBDC well before they were even ready for it, and then that's going to flop too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, is there lots going on behind the scenes with Operation Warp Speed? I missed that
I,
part of the conversation, but
I
I don't know if we need to go down that rabbit hole again. But it's just it made me think of that. So, but
Mhm.
because you had to have the internet before Bitcoin, and then you have to have Bitcoin before AI. So, and like I said, as we said earlier in this episode, we'll probably look back in 10 years and go, it was so freaking obvious. Like, but
I
yeah,
think
I
I
don't
think
know.
it's possible, man. I mean, I think a lot of things were happening there. I don't think it's a silly thought. I mean,
Yeah,
clearly, either you picked up on the artificial nature of the threat of the, scamdemic, as some call it, and the
yeah,
sort of like power grab. Like it was clear to some of us, and it became clear to others that probably wouldn't have been more conspiratorial in their thinking if they hadn't seen such an obvious display. And then a bunch of people just slept walk right into it and didn't pick up on it and literally
right.
had no intuition about it and what was going on. And so I think things were that dire, and I think things are that dire as far as like the adversary or the invisible enemy, as it was put. That yeah, and going back to what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about essentially the fog of war and how we can't know what's real, and I think a lot of this boils down to the scope of the task at hand to fight this force that has essentially enslaved us our entire lives. And
Hmm.
it's like it's not just like why don't we just kick their asses? It's
Yeah.
it's more complicated. I mean, some aspects of it are literally psychological, right? They're embedded in people's subconscious. They're like there's programming like paradigms of thought that need to be toppled. So
Hmm.
yeah, I don't think it's off the table that a big part of warp speed was basically about the global consciousness and bringing a level of awareness, a percentage of that of the population to a level where they could not hope to finish their plans, essentially.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'll go even a little bit further meta with that. In the bigger scale of that. Yeah, this there's been a controlling mechanism here, but whoever you want to call it, from either black hats, elite, whatever, for over 100 years, maybe even thousands of years.
Hmm.
And it's going to take way more than, hey, we're going to come in here and kick everyone's ass. Unless you want like a Mad Max scenario. And
Right.
if you want any kind of, not saying that this is a smooth transition, but to have as a smooth, as much as possible of a smooth transition as you can within this short period of time. Because like we say, Trump was first elected almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Or it is a little bit more than 10 years ago now.
Well,
So like
it's
crazy.
it's going to be way smoother than the great reset they wanted to impose on us, where we'll own nothing and be happy, right? So like, whatever the new this other transition is, I think we're all going to be pretty happy with it with Bitcoin. But I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know. That's obviously where we go because we're very optimistic with it, and we are. I can't even think of the word, man. I'm almost at it today, but yeah, it's we're so cemented in our belief in Bitcoin as the future. So,
Hmm.
and it is the cure. So
Yeah,
that's
and
that's why
I mean,
that's why I'm here. That's why I buy it. That's why I'm Bitcoin poor, or I'm fiat poor because all I do is buy Bitcoin. So you know,
that's not a bad idea, Ryan. That's not a bad
yeah.
idea. There's certainly worse things to do than that. But certainly, like I think to your point, we try to bring the evidence every week that Bitcoin is the cure. So that's, I think that's the
Well,
goal of the channel, and that's perfect. But yeah, I guess, I mean, we don't kind of run out of time a little bit here, but anyone that want to finish off with anything specific?
I'll finish off with something positive.
Okay.
I got a friend actually to buy a whole coin there. That surprised me.
Mm.
He I talked to him about Bitcoin, and he was like, I'm sold. Like something in him just clicked, and he just saw it, and he actually bought himself. He's a whole coiner now. So I mean, there is a few of them still happening. So
Huge.
Very nice. Very
huge,
nice.
yeah. So
Michael Saylor and Strive isn't taking,
he's going
is
to
not
invest
making
in a
him
bunch of
not a
that
whole
stuff too.
coiner.
He wants to research that now too. I've been talking to him about Strive and SATA and Stretch. So
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Stretch and Seda, they are fighting back to par. Certainly, Seda is almost touching 98 earlier today.
Wow,
It's and the daily dividends is going to be coming in here in like a week or two, I believe. So that'll
it'll
be
get there
fun.
for those.
Yeah, that'll be
Yeah,
fun to see that. And Stretch is just, I think, is going to have to raise the variable rate for the dividend rate. So
yeah. Well, SATA's way more appealing to even for the average person, right?
yeah, yeah,
Dailies and a higher rate. So
just for retail.
yeah,
Seda is just the better choice, but still institutional wise and stuff like that, like Stretch is still the king. But
right.
certainly for retail though, like I agree with you. Like
Hmm.
that's where their, I think, bread and butter is gonna be made. So
Okay, another question for you fellas.
mhm.
MSTR. Why did it tank? It can't be because of 32 Bitcoin. I mean, maybe there are that many retarded people out there, but um, is Sailor okay? Is it getting shorted again? Is there a sell off of the MSTR, or is it like is Sailor hitting the ATM while Bitcoin's on
Well,
sale,
I,
or is it a combination?
all I'll say that I am familiar with for at least this week anyway. Uh, Strategy did buy what, about 1,500 Bitcoin, give or take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he did hit the ATM for that. So that was just a couple days. That was whatever, Monday or late last week that happened. So to your point, that could be something like that. And then
Okay.
obviously too, Bitcoin is not in the most healthiest spot as far as price wise. Uh,
Right.
so I don't know. It's a couple. It could be a couple different things, and obviously, yes, MSTR investors weren't necessarily happy. Some of them weren't, and I don't know if that really caused any kind of sell off because of that. But obviously, Michael Saylor said, "What the fuck you guys doing? I just bought
Right.
1,500 here." Like
Yeah.
just 6 days later.
Increased his cash reserves, right? So
Yeah, and
yeah.
then Strive picked up that 32 Bitcoin. So no love lost. It's not out. Yeah, it's people make a big deal out of it, and it's not going to do nothing until Bitcoin does something. It's a levered trade. Like at the end of
Yeah.
the day, that's just what it is. I mean, there's no real. I guess there's always a possibility of like some kind of conspiracy, like you said, like people shorting the shit out of it or suppressing price or whatever. I guess you could say it's always a possibility, but just from what I've seen the last week, that just seems to be what the issue is.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
just the
Or
basic
it could
fundamentals
be
of
a
it.
massive bear trap being set up right now.
Yeah, because Sailor has talked about that. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, and that falls in line possibly to July 4th. I kind of don't want to get my hopes up for July 4th, but like
I
I
know.
know, I
every
don't either,
time
man.
now,
We're
like
gonna go on a
everything,
magic carpet ride if we get
yeah,
our hopes up too high. So
every time I turn my head to something else here, I see
When
another
does
thing
rug season end?
Yes.
When?
does it ever end?
Maybe after the IPOs. Maybe after that.
Yeah.
But then again, that could be rugs in and of itself.
Another
So
5 months. Another
yes.
5 months.
Right.
All right, all right. Meta, you have anything to finish off there?
I I'm going to send you something offline, and I'll just end with this. Right there is some very interesting anomalies around the July 4th celebration. Just very interesting, odd, worth noting. Maybe we can talk about it next week, but
Yeah.
we'll discuss it offline and see what your thoughts are. Very very much in line with the theme of the Scavino post and the Patriots in Control post. So it's just hard not to see it as it looks. But
I look forward
Yeah.
to that one.
yeah. I'll kind of leave everybody with a teaser. Maybe we'll talk about it more. Maybe next week we'll just be like, yeah, no, we all decided it was gay. We're not talking about it.
Yeah. And if we do talk about it, hopefully we have Luke, the one of the I guess you could say originators of a particular July 4th theory. So that'd be awesome. Get his take on it then too. So all right, guys. This is a great week, great episode, great talks, and guys, let us know in the comments what you guys are. Do you have a Q&A for us? Do you guys have any questions possibly that we could tackle in future episodes? Let us know in the comments. Let us know what you're doing in your portfolios as well. And guys, until next time, that's Ryan. I'm Krash. That's Adam, and we got Meta. Stay out of that collateral damage, guys. And if you guys enjoyed this video of the roundtable, check out the whole series of the roundtable right up top.